Welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is the amazing, incredible, stupendously awesome co-host of mine, Donna Carlin. Donna, how you doing?
I'm good. I was waiting for you to say troublemaker at the end of that string of
The stupendous
sentences.
troublemaker, Donna Carlin. There you go.
Troublemaker. There you go. Pot stir troublemaker. There you go.
I may just have to use that as my, my introduction for you point forward. I love that. So, I'm super excited about today's episode. What are we talking about today, Donna?
So I thought we would talk about, are you stuck in reverse, always looking backwards?
Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. There's so many cliches that yeah, I have heard and guilty of using, right? But about the rear view mirror as opposed to the windshield, right? But I think it is funny because so many people look at what they should have done. They get caught up in this mindset of what I should have done, what woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? And that reverse mindset really drives that home for me because I think people are not thinking about what they're doing now or what they should be doing this point forward. A lot of times people get stuck in that reverse mindset, that reverse mentality, or the past allows them to, sort of keep them stuck in, what they should have done as opposed to where they are and what they did do. So, is that kind of what sort of inspired this topic for you in your mind?
It's twofold. One is
Okay.
that, I should have been smarter. I should have taken that opportunity. I should have changed jobs when I had the opportunity. All of those,
Yep.
hindsight, right? 2020. Um, there's also resting on your laurels
Hmm.
or working in an organization and always having a sticking point with somebody or a few people who say, "What we used to do it this way. And life was so much better back then.
Yep.
And before we did this, we were in a much better place." As if the
Mm-hmm.
world didn't change between then and now, number one. And you're not moving with the times that have changed, the situations that have changed, and everything else.
Yep.
And I catch myself doing that also, speaking
Sure.
to somebody this past weekend. I was sharing the fact that we used to go up to the country, we call it a country house in Quebec. Anywhere else, it's a cottage. What could I say? A different language. And there weren't Computers. We had maybe two TV channels in black and white. No iPods or DVDs or no electronics really. So we
Right.
talked, we read, we interacted, we were outside, all the stuff that we did as a family unit that made it so special. And now you see everybody individually into their devices, looking down, whether playing games on social media, not interacting, not exploring the world. And, on the other hand, there's some extraordinary things about technology, like me having the opportunity to speak to you every week and see your wonderful face in front of me, that kind of thing, which I celebrate. Being able to live through COVID and still see the kids,
Yeah.
on Zoom
Yep.
whenever, and have virtual dinners, which we still have to some extent. So, that kind of thing has enriched my life. So it's saying, in the olden days, things were better. They were different. They weren't
Yeah.
necessarily better. Better is what we make now.
Yeah. I
And
like that.
that's what I want to ask people. Like, for you, what would be better now, rather than look in the rear view mirror? And we all tend to do that. It was hard to get to the point you are with your companies. And if we would have done things in a different way, like way back when, we wouldn't have had to go through grief. All the things that we tell ourselves about our entities, our companies, where we work, everything else. If we only had made this one change earlier, or of course you learn from what you lived. So use that as a springboard. And what's ahead, not
Yeah, and
what's behind, what's
I
ahead.
love that. I think and people get caught up in the you know, oh, I wish it was the way it used to be, right? As opposed to understanding and appreciating for what it is today, right? Maybe back then that was the best there was at that time. And yeah, there's some comfort in what worked and what was tried and true. And, you kind of live through that experience, good or bad. It almost always, regardless of whether it's good or bad, people almost always default back to, well, it was simpler or easier or less stressful, or there were advantages to it, even
Yeah,
if we were stressed and frustrated back then. Now we have what we have. And I think it's kind of human nature for us to always be longing for something that we were comfortable with or we experienced that went well, and then look at our current situation and sort of always have that mindset of, somehow, some way it needs to be better. It needs to be better, like it used to be, or, what we're doing today is just not, fulfilling or satisfying or doesn't work. And I think to a certain degree, there is kind of, and we've talked and touched on this in prior episodes, but there is this perception, right? We just did an episode not too long ago about how you perceive things and how you view the world. But I think a lot of times that we have been cultured to always look at the negative more so than the
yeah,
positive, and therefore what we have right here and now can't possibly be good enough to the way it used to be, or won't, it needs to change so that down the road the future is going to give us the much better whatever, right? And I think, we tend to, as a, society in general, really kind of gravitate to, the whatever we don't have right now, and look at it through that lens, which is not always the best way to do it. And there's certainly advantages, like you said, right? The difference between, having devices today that would allow us to communicate like we're doing today, or to have those virtual dinners, or to stay connected and share an idea in a moment's notice. I mean, that's phenomenal. 15 years ago, that really wasn't easy to do. But then there's the flip side, which is the appreciation of, gosh, being in a summer cottage with no Wi-Fi and nobody able to text me at a moment's notice or Slack me or whatever, and just being sort of put back into a time period where it just requires us to have that conversation and engage at a much deeper, more meaningful level. To me, and I'm a technology guy, that sounds like heaven right now.
yeah.
So, and what's great about that is you could say, well, that was the way it used to be. Doesn't necessarily, isn't our reality today, but it could be if you wanted it to. If you really took something that happened in the past and you found value, and you would still see value in it, doesn't mean you can't reverse time a little bit and create those same circumstances, those same environments, and do it now in today's current world. Much like unplugging and going to your summer cottage for 2 weeks where nobody is bugging you from a technology perspective. Those are all possibles, and that is something that you could definitely do if you were committed and willing to do it. If there was so much value in it, and it would allow you to relive that great time that you had back then and make new memories with the time you live now.
That's it. Like you coined it beautifully. How do we take what we did in the past and make it current to what is relevant now? That is the key. Not to
Yep.
live in the past, live it, I won an award like 10 years ago, and I keep telling people that I won an award 10 years ago. It's like me in the book that I wrote that I was incredibly proud of. It was a labor of love. I published it in 2011. Yeah, 2011, 2012. I don't promote that book anymore because I know that I need to update it, and I know that there's different messaging that needs to be out there in the world right now, different conversations. So it's there, and I'm proud of it. I don't rest on it. I'm
Sure.
continuously writing, continuously exploring, continuously picking your brain, which is what I love so much, because we do have different backgrounds, we have different experiences. And, as I get further in my career, I ask myself, what is relevant? And how do I identify when somebody is stuck in the past to the point where they can't move forward because A, they're afraid to, B, nothing seems to be as good as what the past brought them. Even if they haven't experienced it, they've already judged it to be
That's
not as
right.
good as.
Yep. Yep.
And C, what are they not giving the world because they are so stuck in the past? And that's the most relevant question I think of all. If you're stuck in the past, what are you doing to make the future better for you and everyone around you based on what you contribute to that world now?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really good point. I was thinking about when you were talking about, one of my friends that was stuck in the past after going through a really bitter and challenging divorce that he didn't particularly want, but at the time was a pretty traumatic event, but wasn't willing to move on or allow himself the space to kind of heal from that, let alone be in a position to be, even open to meeting anybody else. And he and I were having a beer, many years back now, and he just kept talking about how it used to be and what it used to feel like and how much he was lacking and how much he was missing. And we ended up arriving at a point where we were talking about his daughter and how this framework of thinking was really not allowing her to grow and evolve because their relationship was still stuck in this kind of, nuclear family environment that he once saw as the perfect, world. It just wasn't reality. And at the end of the day, we ended up having this great conversation about really, how do you get yourself unstuck from what that is? Because I just said, hey, do you think this is magically going to come back to you? Is it just if you pine for it long enough, do you think that, somehow, some way, somebody's going to sprinkle some, magic dust on it and just put you back in that environment? He said, well, of course not. So how does it serve you to continue to just pine for that which you cannot have? Your ex-wife has moved on and has a new relationship, and your daughter is trying to figure out how she fits in that world as well as this world, and what do you want, what is going to make you happy. And it really, at that point, I think, he had not really even considered the possibility of that question, right? That there was just so much anger and frustration over how situation ended. He hadn't allowed himself the freedom to think about, well, but it did end, and it's over. So what is next? And literally within 2 years, he had met somebody that he was far more compatible with, someone way better than the past relationship he had had, and just celebrated just a short time ago the birth of his new daughter, right? And that is, if you think about that, there are a lot of us, and I'm included in that, right? That I think and I get stuck in the mindset of the way it used to be or the way it needs to be because that's how we always did it. You have to challenge that thinking. You have to challenge that mindset. Again, not to, promote too much what you and I do, but really that's what a really good coach helps you see, is to look at those viewpoints, look at those and understand those perspectives that may be holding you up from progress and you don't even realize it.
You know, what's interesting as you were sharing this story, what thought came to my mind is the person that he married, that he was divorced from, is not the person he originally married anymore.
Right.
And neither is he.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
And going backwards and saying this is the way it was and I loved it the way it was, the two of you are no longer the same two that got married way back when.
That's right.
And to recognize both. You know, I say to people in a contentious divorce, that is not the person you married for all the reasons you married him or her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as long as you judge that person to be the person who said, I love you and will respect you for the rest of your life or the rest of our lives together, whatever, that's off the table. That's not the person that you married anymore. Either are you. You have life experiences, you have experiences within this relationship that's taken you to a different level. You know what you want, you know what to look for,
Yeah.
you know how to move forward if you give yourself permission to do so. What you did with him was give him permission to have that internal conversation and that internal dialogue that would help him move forward. And he did. What a
Yeah.
gift.
Yeah, well,
Incredible gift,
it
Steve.
it I think your perspective on that as well is really good. Is that you aren't that same person that you were back then, and that relationship isn't. It's a really beautiful way to look at it as well, and I do think that a lot of times people, doesn't matter whether the situation is, whether it's a relationship that's ended or a process or approach that we've done at the company that needs to change, has to evolve. Yet you got to look at, why do you feel comfortable with that? Why do you feel like you're stuck there? And are you not allowing yourself the ability to even contemplate that somehow, some way, by moving on, doing it differently, approaching it differently, having conversations about it differently, could potentially bring something so much greater.
You know why it's easier to go backwards? It's easier to go backwards because you've already experienced it and there are no surprises. You know exactly what to expect. You know exactly what your role is within all of it. It's easy.
Yeah,
Life
yeah.
is not predictable. You could plan it, to the skies and back. Then life happens and screws up all your plans.
it,
So,
it
and
does.
there's no blueprint for kids. Every kid is different. There's no blueprint for life. They used to say, get a job, get a home, 2.5 kids, whatever it is, that statistics share. Give me a break. I mean, life is not predictable,
That's
but the
right.
past is predictable. That's why people go backwards, because it is predictable. It's easy. It's determined. You know exactly if you failed or succeeded. All of that is already done. No effort is involved either.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I was thinking of the childhood game of tag. Back when I was a kid, and I'm sure you did this as well. That nothing was greater than an afternoon of tag with my friends. But we always had a home base, right? Whoever was tagged, whoever was it. They there was a safe zone around home base. Couldn't be tagged in that area. And I remember one game in particular where we had one of the kids that was playing with us would never leave home base. But what it meant was there was going to never be a winner in the game, because they were afraid to get outside the zone and go, run and try not to be tagged and try not to become it. And I remember really vaguely, or vividly, I should say, vividly, that one of my friends said at the time that this has gotten dumb, because we can't. There's no winner, because somebody's always going to be in the safe zone. And how do you have fun playing tag if you are always going to keep it safe and stay stuck in that one place? It doesn't make it fun for anybody, so it's not fun for anyone. So I
Mhm.
was thinking about, I don't know why that popped into my head, but it's how much the past is, home base. And it's what you know. And like you said, it's what you've experienced. But you don't realize and recognize that that was then and this is now. And you're never going to make any progress or have any fun if you don't take any chances to do it differently.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good lesson.
Well, well, as we finish up this episode, Donna, this is yet another great topic for us that I really have enjoyed, and I hope it stimulates some great thinking in terms of the minds of our audience. And we would love to hear what your thoughts are on this episode, and tell us what you took away from this, and really maybe what you experienced was as we put this forward. Maybe some things that you were thinking, hey, I keep looking in reverse instead of looking forward. What are some of those things? We'd love to hear from you. And how can, Donna, people share their thoughts, their ideas, or anything, that maybe that this episode may have spurned in their thinking with us?
So join our group on Facebook, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper, and let us know what you're thinking. Let us know how it resonated with you. We have all our shows posted up there, so you could look at past ones as well and comment on them and suggest things that you would like us to discuss that are relevant to you. We'd appreciate it, and we look forward to it. And you could
Absolutely.
go on our YouTube channel as well and post comments there if that's a better avenue for you. Join our podcasts so that you get notified when a new show is up and running. And just, get in touch with us. Steve's at ripplecentral.com. I'm at donnacarlin.com. Email us, check out our social media, see what else we're posting out there, and let us know what you think.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Donna, I say we look forward, and I am looking forward to our next conversation, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
Oh, take care.